And now we're working into the adaptive defense system. The adaptive defense system is also the third line of defense. Sometimes it's called the specific line of defense because your body is specifically attacking some sort of pathogen. So the immune response is this immune system's response to a threat. Basically, if your body becomes exposed to a virus or a fungi or a bacteria or something else, it'll basically mount up an immune response or an immune system attack on whatever that foreign invader is. Immunology is the study of immunity. And then antibodies are proteins that protect your body from pathogens. So your body produces antibodies, and the antibodies are what protects you or what attacks those foreign invaders. All right, so the three major aspects of the adaptive defense system is the first of all, it's antigen specific, meaning that it's going to recognize and attack a specific type of antigen. So let's say that you are infected with a virus and the virus, I don't know, looks like this. Your antibodies are going to, the antibodies that are going to be produced are going to be made specific to the shape of that particular antigen. They're also systemic, meaning that they're not restricted to the initial infection site. This is actually a big deal. This means that if this virus starts out multiplying in your, I don't know, let's just say in your tonsils, then it can move. Let's say that as that virus spreads, let's say that it moves then towards, I don't know, let's say it moves to your pharynx. That means that your cells, the antibodies, will also move to your pharynx. They're not localized in one spot. And then they also have memory, meaning that your antibodies will, your memory B cells and your other antibodies will recognize and mount a stronger attack on a previously encountered pathogen. So you might have heard that you can't actually get the same viral infection twice. Well, that's kind of true because when you have your initial infection, you're going to build up a lot of antibodies and then all of a sudden that goes away. But then if you're infected with that same one again, all of your memory B cells, which are all up here, all those memory B cells remember that shape of the antigen and they attack it really fast, so you're actually not sick for very long. There's two types of immunity. The first one is humoral immunity. Humoral immunity is different from cellular immunity because humor in the body means that it's taking place in fluid. Humor means fluid. So humoral immunity is also called antibody-mediated immunity, and it's provided by antibodies that are present in fluid. It is also important to know that in humoral immunity, you are attacking pathogens. So you're attacking pathogens only. Okay, cellular immunity is sometimes called cell-mediated immunity, and this targets virus-infected cells. This one is different because in cellular immunity, your immune response is actually attacking self cells, but they're infected with the virus. So just be aware of those two differences. All right, so an antigen is something that your body recognizes being non-self. So this is going to be any substance that's capable of exciting the immune system and provoking an immune system response. So a couple of examples are things like foreign proteins, nucleic acids, you have large carbohydrates, you have some other lipids and proteins and pollen grains, microorganisms. Some examples of pollen grains, if you suffer from like seasonal allergies, basically what's happening is your cells maybe look like this. Your surface cells might look like this. But when you have pollen in the air and maybe around the springtime when things are starting to grow, maybe you take in some pollen grains that maybe look like this and they attach themselves to your cells. So then your cells look like this. Well, your immune system, your antibodies go over to this cell and they say, hey, I don't recognize that cell. And basically what's happening now is when you have an allergic reaction to things like pollen grains, what's happening is your body is actually attacking its self cells, but it doesn't recognize them because of those attached pollen grains. All right, so then we have self-antigens. Self-antigens are human cells that have surface proteins. So, well, I guess that's not a self-antigen, but your cells, so if this is a human cell, it has surface proteins on there. Okay, those surface proteins are what tells your immune system, hey, I recognize this as being part of myself. I'm not going to attack this. But your immune system basically is going to respond to things that are pathogens or your non-self proteins. So our cell in another person's body can trigger an immune response because they are foreign. This is why, so basically it means that if your cells look like this, maybe somebody else's cells look like this. I don't know. Okay, so if this cell went into this body, like an organ transplant or something, it would attack it because your body wouldn't, or that new body would not recognize those surface proteins as being part of itself. All right, and then allergies, many small molecules called haptens or incomplete antigens, they're not antigenic, but they link up with your own proteins, which makes them seem like an antigen. So that's what I was telling you when I said, if your cells look like this, if your surface proteins look like this, and your pollen grains look like this, once they link up, your body no longer recognizes that as a self cell. So the immune system may recognize and respond to a protein hapten combination, which would be that type of situation. So the immune system in this case is actually a really harmful attack because it kills and attacks your own cells. And then let's see, so there are some cells of the adaptive defense system. There's lymphocytes. Remember, those are white blood cells. They respond to specific antigens. You have B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. And then macrophages help lymphocytes as well. So your B cells, you also have memory B cells, which is another type of cell. This is the one that actually has memory, so when you get infected with that same virus again, your body recognizes it and mounts a really strong attack the second time. In addition to having T cells, you also have, cytotoxic T cells, which will basically poison or send in a toxin to other cells that causes it to die. So those are a couple of the specific types of the cells. And then cells of the adaptive defense, I guess these are continued. The other ones are macrophages. So macrophages arise from monocytes. They're widely distributed in the lymphoid organs. They secrete cytokines, and those cytokines are just specific proteins that are very specific to the immune system. And then they tend to remain fixed in lymphoid organs. And then this is really just a diagram that kind of summarizes everything that we talked about. So the different types of molecules that your body will mount an attack on. So you have your antibodies. This is what they do. You have the cytokines. They do all of these things. We didn't really talk about these complements, but we did talk about antigens. So I wouldn't worry about memorizing all these cytokines that we didn't talk about. Same with this TNF factors. You probably don't need to know those either, like for a test, but it is helpful to know overall. So that kind of wraps up the first part of the adaptive immune system. I hope you found it helpful.